I'm this has been an interesting day today. I'm I guess nothing's really changed. I'm just perplexed by how everybody let me say this correctly. I'm perplexed how so many people are certain that they're right about certain things. Been having this discussion about free will with people that I assume are atheists, that some of them might not be, because one did mention God in some manner. But they're convinced that we don't have free will. And it's like, and their evidence for it, one guy said, is science. And the programmer, because I said if we don't have free will, then we're programmed to do things. What's the program? Who's the programmer? And he said, our genes. He says, and I do know what I'm talking about because I've studied this stuff. I have a degree. That doesn't prove that you're right. That proves that you have an opinion and you are convinced that we don't have free will, even though it makes absolutely no sense that we don't have free will. And their argument is that your brain causes you to do the thing before you do it, that this has been demonstrated, which it has. But the guy who did the testing concluded that that doesn't mean we aren't freely choosing to do it. Even the guy who did the test, I forget his name now. But I Googled him. I said, oh, let me see this test. And I was like, yeah, see, and this runs contrary to having free will. And I said, but he concluded, the guy who did the test said, no, it's not necessarily the case. If just think about it this way. I'm baffled that I can't convince them, because all of their arguments have proven nothing, and they don't get it because they're like, this is just obvious. How do you not see this? And I'm like, because it doesn't make any sense. If I don't have free will, then I'm not making my hand move. I'm not choosing to do this, because if I'm choosing to do this, then I have free will. I can freely choose to move my hand, or I can freely choose to not move my hand. And they tried to get around this by saying, no, your brain is actually making you do that before you choose, and you think that you've chosen. Okay, then that means that I am not able to choose whether or not I will move my hand, or whether or not I won't. I can't choose to not move my hand, and I can't choose to move my hand. If I do it, I am not doing it of my own free will. I am not freely choosing to do this. Something in my brain triggered first that made me do this, and I did it in response to my brain saying to do it. But my brain is me, and my brain is how I think, because if you give me a lobotomy, I won't be able to think anymore. And that is who we are. It's our brain. But no. So then we're the observer. I'm like, oh, this is what all the spiritualists say, that we don't really exist, that we're just the observer. And this is the argument they used, that we're just an observer in this meat suit, experiencing this life that we are all pre-programmed to do. So I do not have the ability to make a choice. I said, so in other words, we can't make any decisions. And he said, yeah, no one can. That was another response to my question. No one can make decisions. This is such a ludicrous position, and they are convinced that they're right, and they are convinced that I just don't understand. Then there's people who are convinced that hell is real, and that all lost sinners are going to go there, but Jesus loves them, and God loves them, and is trying to save them from going to this horrific place that he created, but it's their choice. And that God is love and God loves them, but if they go there, that's also God's expression of love, burning them for all eternity, because God is love, and we can't define love by our terms. We have to define love by what God says. So you're assuming that the Bible is the inerrant word of God, which it isn't. And if it is, your God is a schizophrenic psychopath, which is why it's not. And this argument that you have to go by what God says, where by what God says in the Bible? There's a passage in the Bible that condones selling your daughter into slavery. It's in the Old Testament. They quote Leviticus to condemn homosexuality. The Bible absolutely condemns homosexuality in the Old Testament. And Paul said it's unnatural for a man to lie with a man. But the Bible also condones selling your daughter into slavery. It condones stoning people to death. It condones all kinds of horrible things that nobody follows. There's a passage about bitter water. God said if you rape someone, you need to pay a fine of like 50 shekels, and then you have to marry that woman. Because, the woman's screwed if you raped her back then. She's done, because no one will marry her, and women are basically property in the Old Testament. And God was actually looking after those women by having their rapists marry them. I know this because I listened to a man on Christian radio explain that this is God taking care of those women. To him, this just made perfect sense. People are so convinced that they're right. I don't know for a fact that I have free will. I believe I have free will. And I don't question it in any way. But I don't know that. If I don't have free will, then I'm completely unaware that I don't have free will. And this is, like they said, it's just an illusion. Sure, okay. I don't know that atheism is true. I don't know that God exists. I don't know that heaven and hell are real. I don't know that the Bible actually is it. Maybe the Bible is inerrant, even though there are contradictions in it and horrific things in it. Maybe it's still inerrant. I don't know. Are you really certain that you know certain things? Because you don't. How have you arrived at this position in your life that you know hell is real? Oh, I know hell is. No, you don't. I know Jesus died. No, you don't know that either. I do not know for an absolute fact that Jesus was a historical figure. I believe he was. But I don't know that for an absolute fact, and neither do you. The guy in the radio that I used to listen to, he's in Detroit, and I would drive to Detroit once a week approximately. And I would listen to him because he was interesting. And I got into it with him. I emailed him, and he gave me what for and said, "Who the hell are you?" It was an interesting conversation that we had. But I didn't know what I was doing either. I was a young doofus. And I was taking him on because his born-again Christianity just annoyed me to no end. But give me a second. So he's talking about the historicity of Jesus, and he said, we have more evidence that Jesus exists than we do George Washington. And I went, no. We know for a fact that George Washington existed. We have his diary that he wrote in. We have no writings from Jesus. Everything is hearsay. You do not know for a fact that Jesus existed. I think he did. I think there's enough evidence that supports that he existed. But if we knew for a fact that he existed, why have there been at least 2, probably 3 or more books written claiming that he's a myth? There are no books written saying that George Washington was a myth. If there are, let me know. There are at least 2, and probably more. Asharia S. is one person who says Jesus never existed. The Passover plot, I believe, claims that the whole thing is a play, a drama. It's a story made up. There was a guy who existed, it was either 300 BC or 300 AD, who sounds exactly like Jesus. I think it's 300 AD. I forget his name, but there was a skeptic who was debating Kent Hovind. He's known for Skeptic Magazine or something, and he talked about this guy. It sounds exactly like Jesus. And it took place, and this guy lived apparently 300 years after Jesus. I don't think it was 300 years before. I think it was 300 after. Pretty sure. And Kent Hovind just mocked him for saying it's like, there's a story about a guy and it sounds like Jesus. What? Not sure if I don't think the story says he rose from the dead. But he had disciples, 12 disciples. He went around healing people. It sounds like the same darn story. And I forget the guy's name. And I forget the atheist who was debating Kent Hovind, but he was a member of Skeptic Magazine, I think. These young earth creationists are certain that Noah's flood was global. I don't believe that Noah's flood was global. I don't even know if Noah's flood, if there was such a thing, is just that, or that it's just a story. I have no opinion of it. There are floods in every civilization all over the world. So that's the argument they use. See, there was a global flood because there's floods in every story. No, that just means there were local floods everywhere. That's all that proves. We know there were floods. So what? There is no evidence that entire mountains were underwater. That's just absurd. Is it possible? Oh, anything is possible, but no, theoretically, no, it's not possible. Where did the water go? Could God have done it? Sure, God is all-knowing, all-present, all-powerful. God could do anything. God could kill all of us right now and bring us all back to life, and we wouldn't even know. So when people say, well, Noah's flood is stupid because it's not possible, so it's possible if God did it. And they look at me like I'm dumb. It's like, you don't think God could do it? God can do anything. Do I think the Noah's flood is a literal story about a flood that flooded the entire world? No. No, I don't. All I know is I don't know anything about anything. That's the only thing I'm certain of, that I don't know anything about anything. And I'm really confused why so many people are certain they know. I don't know how old the universe is. I assume science is reasonably accurate about it, but how could they know? I'm not convinced that evolution did happen, and I'm not convinced that it didn't happen. I've never been persuaded 100% either way. I remain open to it. And no matter what conclusions I draw, like I do have free will, I will always be open to the possibility that I'm wrong and I don't have free will. I don't actually have free will. Now, that makes no sense to me. And when they gave me the science, I laughed at their scientific evidence. It's crazy. Why are we so certain that we're right? On what basis can you know? I mean, as I said in a different video, Ray Comfort, the evangelical born-again Christian, is on video where atheists show him a Bible contradiction, and he said, if you can show me one, I'll give you $100. And it's about the potter's field. And they showed him the two verses that completely contradict each other. And he said, after looking at it, he tried to get around it. He finally said, well, it looks like I owe you $100. I'm like, oh my God, Ray Comfort just acknowledged that there's a contradiction in the Bible, which means the Bible is not the inerrant word of God. And according to them, we can't trust the Bible now, which I say baloney. There's plenty of truth in the Bible. And there's plenty of stories in the Bible that are made up, and there's lots of errors in the Bible, and so what? It's like, oh, but it was inspired by God. Lots of things are inspired. Lots of things. I felt that when I wrote my 2 D&D novels, ideas came to me, and I don't even know where they came from. The second book that I wrote, I ended up going down paths that I had no plans of going down. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I writing this? And I'm like, well, I'll just keep writing it and see where it goes. And I ended up staying with it. And in my latest community post, I've been trying to get you people to listen to my my narration of it, because I really think you'll enjoy it. Even if you're not a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, I think you'll enjoy listening to the story. I wrote this background chapter for one of the characters called The Tale of Nightwind. And Nightwind is the dwarf in the party. And I wanted to write the background chapter for him. I'm like, well, let's see now. So he's a dwarf, so he's going to be just like Gimli. And I don't want him to be just like Gimli from Lord of the Rings, for those of you who don't know. So how can I write a story, a background story about Nightwind, this dwarven warrior, that makes him unique from Gimli, but he's still a dwarf? And I couldn't come up with a thing. Had to step away for a second. So I had no clue what to write. Long story short, I had an odd dream that night. Woke up in the morning, thought, what a weird dream. And all of a sudden an idea popped in my head. And I wrote The Tale of Nightwind that day. I've posted 3 background chapters on my community posts. I'm still going to call them community posts. They just call it posts now. It's community post. And I would love for you guys to listen to them and just leave a comment on the chapter, in the chapter, saying, hey, I listened to this and here's what I thought about it. Positive, negative, whatever you want to say. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you thought. Because The Tale of Nightwind, I got several really nice comments. I only got 2 comments on the video. Very nice comments. But someone listened to it who himself had written books. And I said, hey, I thought you might enjoy this. And he listened to it and he shared it on his Facebook page. Said, hey, this was a really neat chapter. It's a great thing. I forget what he said, but he really liked it. And at least one other person said something very complimentary regarding it. Now, I think every background chapter that I wrote is a very interesting chapter. And I do feel that I was inspired to write the things that I wrote, because I don't even know where some of this stuff came from. So maybe my books are the Word of God. I'm kidding. But I'm about to talk about the next one I'm going to share sometime tomorrow, probably, or tomorrow or Tuesday. If you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, clerics in D&D, especially old school D&D, I'm pretty sure new school is the same, but there are no atheists in a fantasy world, in a D&D world. Tolkien's world, there were no atheists. Gods are real. So imagine being a cleric in a fantasy world where magic and monsters are real and deities exist and clerics pray to deities. And the cleric in my story, in his background chapter, at one point becomes an atheist. Now, I thought, wow, this is a really interesting concept, because there is no such thing as an atheist in a fantasy realm D&D world. No such thing. Everybody just naturally assumes God's exists and no one questions it. And yet he came to no longer believe that they exist. And it's the whole story is like 15 minutes long. So that'll be posted next time. And, you know, if you don't want to listen to it, you don't want to listen to it. But I'm just surprised that I can't generate any interest in my story, because the story is so good. I've had enough people tell me that it's really, really fun story. At least to listen to it, it's fun. Yeah, I was trying to think of what else I wanted to say, but this whole concept that we're so convinced that we know certain things when you don't know. I don't know that the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning. Do you? I mean, think about it. You don't know if the sun is going to. It might not. Now, the odds are infinitesimal that it won't. It is almost absolutely certain that it will. But you don't know for an absolute fact that the sun will come up tomorrow. You can flip that around. You don't know that had you bought a lottery ticket, there were 2 winners, this $1.8 billion lottery ticket, apparently there were 2 winners. Imagine that. 2 people got those numbers, because those numbers are impossible to get. You don't know that if you had bought a ticket, that you might have also won. You don't know. The odds are almost zero that you would have. And that's how they get people to buy. Because, hey, what if it happens? Some people have won. It happens at times. Maybe you'll win. Isn't it worth a $2 investment to just take a chance? I bought 2 tickets. I picked one on myself. I let my mind decide, and then I let God decide. I said, okay, you pick the one at random, and I'll pick one, and there we go. I'll cover both avenues. Sadly, I didn't win. My whole life would have been transformed. Of course, if you win that lottery ticket, what do you do? Let's just say you won. Okay, now you've got this ticket. What do you do? You got to sign it. Where do you go? And then when you go to where you got to go, isn't everyone going to try to steal that ticket from you? How are you going to keep this ticket safe? It's like this guy's holding a ticket that's worth $1.8 billion. Oh, hi, are you here to collect the money? Yeah, here. This is a stick up. Give me that ticket. How would I get there and then say I'm here for the lottery? Like, oh, you're the guy with the ticket? How would I not get jumped? How do you? I'm like, if I were to win this, what am I going to do? Get an armed guard? They'll just take it. The armed guard would take it. It's like this guy's got 1.8 billion in his pocket. Let's take it from him. How do you go to the whoever you go to and turn it in and get your money? Here's your money, sir. We're going to write a check and here you go. Because you're going to take the lump sum. That's what I would take, which I don't know what that would have amounted to. 6, 7, 800 million. I don't know what it would have amounted to, but whatever. It'd take a lump sum. And they're just going to hand that to you? Those people aren't rich. They're just going to hand. I would think my life would be in danger, that I'd be jumped. I can't imagine the people who won that ticket, how are they going to collect that money without people trying to kill them or do something? I can't imagine. The vultures have got to be circling when the guy with the winning lottery ticket shows up to collect his money. How does that work? I don't know. But I don't know that the sun's going to come up tomorrow. And science tells me, the sun isn't coming up, we're just rotating. You'll see the sun, but the sun isn't moving, we're moving. How did we figure that out? How did we figure out that we're doing this while going like this? How did we figure that out? Oh, well, you look up at the stars. Yeah, but we've been looking at the stars forever. And we've always assumed, because you see the sun go across the sky. And we figured out that that's not what's happening. What if that is what's happening? What if what we're told is all a lie? Do you know for an absolute fact that is it? Yes, I know for an absolute fact. No, you don't. No, you don't. I can prove it because I'm a scientist and I've studied this. And I don't care what you know. I don't care what you've studied. You do not know for an absolute fact. You could be wrong. You could be deceived. I'm told that everything that we see is just an illusion anyway. That's hilarious. People are so convinced that they know what's true. Jehovah's Witnesses are convinced that their Bible is perfect. The Mormons are convinced that their Bible is true. That they have the true religion. Convinced of it. What convinced you of it? When the vast majority of people laugh. Herbert Armstrong convinced I don't know how many millions, but he convinced a lot of people that he had found the truth and that he preached the truth. Herbert Armstrong. Despite all the criticism and all the people saying this guy's a charlatan, this is heresy, the church grew and grew and got very, very popular. And then after he died, oh boy, the church went through a whole bunch of changes. That was funny. That was so funny. I mean, think about all the cults that exist and all the crazy things that people are certain they're right about. I mean, I'm certain that the left is more correct and that the right is more wrong on most issues. But I don't know that for a fact. I'm certain of it in my own mind, but I don't know that for an absolute fact. I don't know anything for an absolute fact. Other than things like 2 + 2 = 4. I know that for an absolute fact. That is an absolute indisputable fact. And things like that. And that's all I know. And that's all you know. Yet we're so convinced that what we believe is true. You're convinced of it. I'm not. I'm not anymore. I'm not convinced that hell is a myth. I believe it's a myth. Jesus talked about hell more than anything. No, he didn't talk about hell at all. He never once. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I do. I studied it. That I know. Jesus never talked about hell. He did mention Gehenna, and you call that hell. That's fine. And then there was Sheol, and you call Sheol hell, even though it just means the grave or the pit. But whatever. It's so crazy that people are, how certain people are of things that you can't know for an absolute fact. Try adopting this philosophy. Try it. Truth is more important than my beliefs. Therefore, I could be wrong, because what do I know? And therefore, I am open to the possibility that I'm wrong. That doesn't mean you can't be convicted of your beliefs. I am convicted of my beliefs, of most of my beliefs, that hell's a myth, that Jesus never talked about it, that the Bible is not the inerrant word of God, that Jesus was probably a historical figure and probably was crucified and died. And did he rise from the dead? Well, I think he did, but was he born of a virgin? Was he the unique Son of God, second person of the Trinity? No, I don't think that. No, I don't think so. Could be wrong. I came to the conclusion that I don't need to know everything. And it's not important how many things I'm wrong about. That's not critical. Because you know why you become convinced of stuff? Because you want to be right. And so you become convinced that you're right because you want to be right, because now you got the truth. We've got the truth, man. We know this is true. No, you don't. Try, I don't know for an absolute fact that what I believe is true. It'll free you. You'll be free. I don't need to figure it out. I don't need to be absolutely certain of anything. I'm not absolutely certain that I'm going to die. I mean, there are people, I know somebody from many years ago who said, oh no, there are people here who are immortal. They've never tasted death. There's a verse in the Bible about it. Talked about Melchizedek. And some, I think said something about some who have never died. Melchizedek is apparently one of those people. Maybe he's still here today. He was back in Abraham's day, Imagine if Melchizedek is still around. He's not going to let you know. He wouldn't let you know. There are people who say that they're aging backwards. I mean, I don't even consider it that I won't die. And on the contrary, I'm looking forward to death because I want to see what happens. And I'm no longer afraid of death. But how do I know I won't be afraid of death if I get close? If I start dying, maybe I will become afraid. Maybe I'll be terrified. I hope not. But I don't need to figure out the truth. I don't need to. I'd like to know anything I can. Anything I can discover is truth. I'm all for discovering more truth and figuring things out. But I do not know anything for an absolute fact other than the things that I can know for an absolute fact, like 2 + 2 = 4. That's it. What do you know is an absolute fact? I know it's an absolute fact that if I hold something in my hand and drop it, it will fall. I can easily demonstrate it by dropping it and it will fall. I know that for an absolute fact. Now, will it always fall if I drop it? Could there come a time where one day I will drop this and it doesn't fall? I doubt it. But, I didn't need to drop it to prove it. But I could have easily demonstrated that. People say there are no absolutes. And are you absolutely certain of that? See, I think there are absolutes. And I find it bizarre that people claim to know that there are no absolutes. How could you possibly know that there are no absolutes? What if there's one absolute in the world other than the fact that saying there are no absolutes is a statement of absolute? That's an absolute statement. You just stated something which therefore is an absolute, that there are no absolutes. So there's one. How do you know there's not one, at least one more? How do you know there's not 17,000 more absolutes and you just have no clue that they are absolutes? It's absolutely true that if I drop this right now, it'll fall to the ground. It's absolutely certain. I know that for a fact. And I can easily demonstrate it by dropping it and it would fall, and you know it would fall. So there's an absolute. I'm absolutely certain that if I turn this light, the light will come on. Oh, but it might not. The light might burn out. Right, but it won't. It'll turn on. See, it'll turn on. No matter what I do, it will turn on. I know absolutely for a fact that this will continue to turn on as long as I do this, and there is no chance that it's not. I'll do it. I'll prove it one more time. See, there we go. There, it did it again. Absolutely certain. There's no doubt in my mind. But it is technically possible that light might not have turned on. True. But I was absolutely certain that it would turn on right now, and it did. And if I turned it on again, I am absolutely certain that the light would go on. And I'm absolutely certain that if I turned the light off in this room, that the lights would go out and it would be dark in here. I'm absolutely certain of that. So there's all kinds of absolutes. And yet people are convinced that there are no absolutes other than the statement that there are no absolutes. Why not just say, I don't know? That atheists love to say that. Hey, is there a God? I don't know. How about I don't know? Yeah, I totally respect that. Yeah, I don't know that there's a God either. I don't. William Lane Craig acknowledged that he didn't know for an absolute fact that God exists. And Christians are like, how could he say that? Because he knows that it's not an absolute fact. And they couldn't understand why he would say that. You're so certain that you know what you can't possibly know. You can't possibly know. Unless you know something I don't. I've studied it. It's science. That doesn't prove anything. Science only cares about what's true. Science, for the most part, not 100%, was developed by Christian men who believed that God created the universe and therefore the universe operated by rational laws, and that they could discover those laws through the pursuit of science. And science, the scientific method, was developed by Christian men. It was. I don't know the exact person who did it, but they were Christian. Not all scientists were Christian. There were atheistic scientists. There were scientists from other religions. I know that. Gee. But it's funny when the atheists say, science, there are atheists who think that science has proven that God doesn't exist, which is hilarious since Christians were the ones who developed the scientific method for the most part. And someone's going to take issue with that I said that in the comments. I'll be very surprised if somebody doesn't take issue with that. You guys really should study the opposing viewpoints whenever you're certain of your viewpoint. Like, see, I used to be a conservative. Back in the 80s, I listened to Rush Limbaugh and probably agreed with at least half of what he said because I was a goof. Rush Limbaugh's a con man. And now he's gone, of course, but Total scumbag. Just a terrible guy. Conned the world and made millions of dollars doing it. People are so certain that they're right. It's like, you got to listen to the opposing view, because what if you're wrong? And that's what I did. Because I realized I hadn't been doing that. I never really gave the left a fair shot. I just assumed that the left were a bunch of hateful people who were highly immoral and hated God and hated America and hated the world and hated themselves. And they were just hateful, evil, immoral scumbags. Because that's what Rush Limbaugh told me they were. And that's what the right told me they were. Michael Knowles says liberalism embodies, I'm paraphrasing, embodies the 7 deadly sins. He's a self-righteous hypocrite. Horrible man. But he thinks he's God's gift. And he's a very moral man of integrity, even though he's got this fake smile on his face. The most fake smile. God, I can't stand when people give a fake smile. Michael Knowles has this fake smile. And I see right through him. It's like, how do people not see this? And here's another one. How do people listen to Ben Shapiro? I don't care if you're a conservative or not. How can you listen to Ben Shapiro? He's so annoying sounding. I just heard him recently, and he's speaking slower now. I think enough people have said, you talk so fast. It's so annoying when people talk fast like that, because it's bullshit. How can you listen to Trump and think he's a good man? How do you not see through his bullshit? How can you listen to Kenneth Copeland and say, there's a good Christian man? He's a very moral, good man who really knows what he's talking about. How can you listen to that guy? I see a little beady-eyed, demon-possessed loon. If demon possession is real, Kenneth Copeland is demon-possessed. That's my conclusion. No, I don't know that for a fact. But if I had to guess, I just don't get why we are all so easily deceived, easily convinced of something as being absolute truth when it's not. And if you're certain of something is absolute truth, you should want to challenge it to make certain that you really are right. Because that's what science does. That's what science does. Oh, this we're claiming this is true. Okay, now we need to see if we can prove that it's not. If we can't prove that it's not, we will hold that it is unless we can prove that it's not. That's the basic essence of the scientific method. Now someone's going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not the scientific method. That's part of what science does. Tries to establish that something is true by making sure they can't prove that it's not true. If you can prove that it's not true, then there's no reason to continue to believe it. We've just demonstrated that it's not true, and now we no longer believe it. If science proves that evolution didn't happen, science would no longer believe in evolution, except that they have convinced themselves that it's an absolute fact and they will not question it anymore, even though the very essence of science says you should always question. You should never be 100% certain of anything because you can be wrong. And that's my philosophy of life now, which is literally what science is supposed to be all about. How do you know you're right? What if you're wrong? Wouldn't you want to know? See, I want to know if I'm wrong. Do you want to know if you're wrong? I mean, about anything. Would you want to know if you're wrong? I want to know if atheism is true. I want to know if God is real. I want to know if God is Thor. I want to know if Thor is real. I want to know. I'd love to know if Thor is real. Do I believe Thor is real? Yeah, I do. Do I know it? No, no clue. Why do I believe he's real? Because I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that the universe is infinite. Oh no, the universe is only 56 trillion light years across. First of all, how do you know that and what's beyond it? There are so many problems with that. Might be true. but I don't buy it. I believe the universe is infinite, and therefore Thor does exist, and so does everything. If the universe is infinite, then everything which could exist almost certainly does exist. Did I say that correctly? I hope so. Think about it. I'm not claiming to know that the universe is infinite. I don't know. The universe might only be 1,000 miles, and everything else is an illusion. It goes for 1,000 miles and you hit a wall. The earth might be flat, like the flat earthers say, and it's surrounded by an ice sheet. Have you ever proven that that's not the case? And if you want to prove it, it's real simple. Get in an airplane and fly in one direction and see if you run into an ice wall. Just fly where the ice wall shouldn't be. There you go. Do that. There's the North Pole and there's the South Pole down here. Okay, well, fly over here and see if you run into an ice wall. It's really simple. It's really simple to prove if the Earth is flat or not. Get in a damn plane and make a video and fly where there should be no ice wall and just keep going. And you've got the compass, so you know you're still going that direction, northwest or whatever pattern we want to go. Because, the flat Earth, you have to go like this. You have to keep going around and around and around and around. So you're either going east all the time or west all the time or north or south, I guess. I don't even know how the flat Earth works with the compass. No freaking clue. But I'd want to know if it was flat. If somebody could prove to me that it's flat, I would want to know that. If somebody could prove absolute proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is round, and therefore all flat earthers will go, oh crap, we were wrong. I'd love to see that evidence. Can't believe we can't come up with that evidence. It's almost like they want this thing to keep going so people can keep arguing about it. It's strange. And they're so convinced that they're right. I'm not convinced of anything. And I don't need to be. I'd like to be, but I don't need to be. Do you need to be? Do you need to be right? Is it important? Will your worldview come crumbling down? If we could travel back in time and view the past, this is my theory. Time travel is real. You can do it, but you can only view it. You can't interact with it. Remember the time machine when he traveled in time, in the time machine? In my time machine, he couldn't get out. He could sit there and look at everything, but nobody would see him because he's out of phase. And people would walk right through him. Or he could move it, he could fly, and he could go anywhere in the world and go through at any point in time and just view it. Imagine if someone figures out how to do that. Imagine if what I've just described is possible. If it is, someone will figure it out. It's just a matter of time. Could be 1 trillion years from now. Could be 1 year from now. And they get in their time machine with their video camera and they return on their video camera, and they travel back in time and they find out that, let's go with this one. Jesus existed, he was crucified and died, but he never rose from the dead. Oh my God. And he proves it because he's got the camera there. And he can go inside the tomb where Jesus lays because he's moving through time. He's not there. He's there to view. So nobody sees him. He can he can go right into the tomb, and there's the body. And now we've established that Jesus did exist, and there he was crucified. We saw the Roman centurion stab him. We know this is Christ. He went through all the things, and then he was buried, and there you are in your time machine watching, and you speed ahead. You just speed ahead, and he just stays there. And then someone comes and takes the body. Oh, and then they make up the whole thing. Oh, people have come up with that theory. We debunked that a long time ago, say the Christians. Okay, fine. But if somebody traveled in time and viewed it, now it's irrefutable. What are you going to do if that's true? What would you do? Oh my God, your whole worldview just came crumbling down. Everything you assumed was absolute certain truth, you just found out was not true. What if someone proves through time travel that evolution is wrong, that you're wrong? that we did not descend from primates. And they prove it with viewing the past through a time machine. What are you going to do? Oh my God, what are you going to do? See, my worldview can't be crushed. Yours can. Why have a worldview that can be crushed? You know how your worldview is crushed? If you're wrong. If you're wrong, if your worldview is wrong, you're crushed. My worldview can't be wrong because I don't have one. I don't have a worldview that says this absolutely happened and absolute fact. I don't have that worldview. My worldview is truth is more important than my beliefs. That's it. That's my worldview. That can never be crushed. Oh, look, Jesus did rise from the dead. Oh, look, Jesus didn't rise from the dead. Oh, look, we evolved from primates. Oh, look, we didn't evolve from primates. Oh, look, the earth is flat. Oh, look, Noah's flood really happened. Oh, look, here's koala bears, and they go all the way to Australia. We prove it. We followed them in our time machine. We just sped up time and followed them. And they went all the way to Australia. Look at that. It really happened. Oh, look, it's all a myth. Oh, look, Adam and Eve are real. Oh, look, Adam and Eve never happened. Under no circumstance is my worldview crushed. Yours is. So why have that worldview if it can be crushed? Why hold to a worldview claiming that that is absolute truth when there's no way you can know for certain that it's absolute truth? You do not know for an absolute fact that Jesus existed, let alone that he rose from the dead. Oh, no, there's more evidence for Jesus than there is for George Washington. No, there isn't. That's a lie. It's just a lie. Why do this to yourself? Why set yourself up for being completely crushed when if at some point in the future someone proves that your worldview is wrong? What are you going to do? And therefore, all you have to do is say, hey, I could be wrong. This is my worldview, but I could be wrong. I'm convinced that the earth is flat. That's my worldview. I could be wrong. It's possible that I'm wrong. And that's fine. See, then your worldview won't get crushed. If you're wrong, it's not going to be like, oh my God, I was wrong. Now what? There's no point in anything. It won't matter if you're wrong. If you realize that you could be wrong. That's all you got to do. And I'm not saying you have to change your worldview. You can still believe in whatever it is you believe. But just know that you could be wrong about anything. Except things that are observable facts. 2 + 2 = 4. Someone's going to say evolution is an observable fact. No, it's not. The only thing that is an observable fact is that everything is evolving. It is not an observable fact that we evolved from something that wasn't human. You assume it's true. You don't question it. That's fine. You're 100% certain in your mind that it's true. That's fine. But you ought to say, I don't know for an absolute fact. I'm 100% convinced in my mind, but I don't know because I can't go back in time and absolutely observe this. Therefore, I don't know for an absolute fact that I'm right. I'm convinced that evolution is true, but hey, I could be wrong. And if someone ever proves that I'm wrong, then I would say, oh, look, we were wrong. That's what Bill Maher said. If they said, if Jesus came back, what would you say? He said, I'd go, oh, look, there's Jesus. Oh, I was wrong. He said that on his show. One of the times that I actually had a lot of respect for Bill Maher because I'm like, that's my kind of atheist. Yeah, what if God really exists? What you going to do? Or to the Christian or to any theist, what are you going to do if God doesn't exist and it's not true? What if when you die, you continue to exist, but your view, your worldview, your religious view is wrong? What are you going to do? I'm just going to go, oh, wow, what's true? Hey, what's going on? I'm here, I'm dead, and now there's life, and I'm somewhere, and something's happening, and I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's true. What did I get wrong? What did I get right? That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be like a kid in a candy store. Hey, what's going on here? Where are we? That's so much better. That's so much more freeing. I'm not locked into anything. I don't need anything to be true. I don't need Jesus to be true. I don't need evolution to be true. I don't need it to be. I don't need anything to be true or false. I assume things are the way they are, and I think I'm right about these things, but I don't know for a fact. And just leave it at that. You can be as convinced as you want, but just realize that you could be wrong. As long as you realize you could be wrong, then you're free. You're not locked in. And if you discover you're wrong, your worldview won't be crushed. I had a woman say to me, we were talking on Facebook, she goes, if I found proof, absolute proof that there was no God, I said, right, absolute proof, certain, there was no question. She goes, I'd kill myself. What? That's so dumb. That's so dumb. So you need God to be real. You can't deal with life if there is no God. That doesn't make any sense. You've been living your life, and if God doesn't exist, you've lived your life. God hasn't existed this entire time. You just thought he did, but in truth, you find out one day that he didn't, and now you're going to kill yourself. So your life had meaning up until this point, the life that you lived assuming there was a God when in fact there wasn't? And now you need to kill yourself. This is crazy. I don't get it. So that's it for me. I've once again made another long video because I'm a goof and I'm nuts. And it's been a weird day. It's been a very weird day. I hope you'll listen. If you don't want to listen to the tale of Latia, the tale of Lightmane, those are the other two that I posted, and they're really good stories. I hope you'll listen to the tale of Nightwind. I want to see if you agree with the people who told me, yeah, that was really cool. That I came up with a story for a dwarf that made him unique from Gimli, but he's still a dwarf in every way. He's a dwarf. He's not, he's the typical dwarven person like Gimli. In a lot of ways, he's very similar to Gimli, but he's very unique. And I came up with something that something had to do with a dream that I had, and I can't remember the dream now. And I have no idea where this idea came from, but I wrote it like that. Then spent the day, going over it and editing it and rewriting it. You proofread and you change things as you go, but I finished it in one day. And I'm like, where did that come from? Where did I get that? And it's the same thing with book two. Book two, my second book, there was the same thing. I'm like, where did all this come from? What caused me to write all that stuff? Where did I come up with these ideas? Because these were not in my head when I knew the general story, but I did not have any thought of the several things that I wrote about. I created a dragon for D&D. I created at least 3 magical items for D&D. So it's crazy. Anyway, hope you check it out. Talk to you later.